Hey guys, Brian Hathaway here, episode 42, Holdcast, sitting on Holdfast. Today we're talking squalls. What is a squall, you ask? A squall is a sudden violent increase in wind speed that is commonly associated with torrential rain showers or thunderstorms. Wow. You just want to go into one right now, don't you? Like, oh my God, I have to experience that. Well, you might. Like, I'm not a meteorologist. Go figure. I spent 2 years sailing between Mexico to Polynesia, over to Fiji, up to Marshall Islands, across over to Palau. I say that to mean I have been through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of squalls, you know, to wind up in the 50s. And they're not fun. I'm going to pass along what I do. I know what a bunch of other people do. There are hundreds of boats around me. I talk to everyone, shares stories, everyone shares tactics, all that good jazz. So this is just the way that I spot them, how I prep for them, and how I get through them. We'll try to do this as quick as possible. Although I tend to be a bit long-winded, so probably not. What is a squall? Like I said, a lot of wind comes on quick, generally 20 to 25% higher than the prevailing wind you're in. So the sustained wind you're in. So if you're in 20, you're looking at 25. You're in 25, looking at 30, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The force of the apparent wind, the higher you get, there's a bunch of math around it. It gets exponentially worse as it gets up there. So anything over 35, it's pretty scary. The first couple times you're in them, they're scary anyway. After that, you're like, okay, well, this is something to handle. It's not really that big of a deal as long as I'm serious about it and treat it as it should be treated. Get through it, no problem. But never get to be like, oh, it's just a squall. I'm going to stay full sail and deal with it. I got caught in 35 knots. It just formed right on top of me. It rounded me up in like half a second. It was the scariest thing. I'm by myself. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm not tethered in. I just went up to like check on the chart plotter, and it just happens just like that. And you got to be prepared. Rarely does that happen to where they just form on you, and we'll go into that here in a little bit. So the biggest thing for you as a boater, and specifically as a captain, is to practice reefing the boat. That's the main thing to do when squalls are coming, is reef the boat. So you need to efficiently be able to add and drop a reef. I will say this next sentence 4 times in the next 15 minutes. Once you are in the squall, that's your life. You're not reefing the boat in 35 knot winds. If you're sailing 130 and you have all your sails up, you're not going to come across 90 to get up in the wind and reef your boat. So maybe you will. I don't know. You're going to get flattened. That's the bottom line on that. If it's above 30, 35, and you're full sail, you could possibly, if you really get caught with your pants down, start to turn, blow the sheets, and then once you get past like 80, start bringing the sheets back in, right? Just slowly start to bring the sheets back in, or quickly, actually. You want to quickly bring the sheets back in. But that should not be a thing. You can see these things from 25 miles away if you have radar. If you don't have radar, it tends to get a bit difficult. We're going to go over that here in a minute as well. So, talking about radar, that's your best friend when it comes to squalls. You can see them forever away. It's fantastic. If you do not have radar, you kind of just have to look for shelf clouds. There's a bunch of different things you can see. I had a whole thing written up on identifying them without a radar. I don't have to do that, so I've never really paid enough attention. And from what I've read, there really is no way. You can look for these clouds, but there's like 10 different types of clouds to look for, and some are more common than others. I would just say they're all black. If there's a big, giant black cloud coming up on you that is on the horizon, probably want to reef your sails down. One way or another, it's a storm or it's a squall. There's going to be some wind coming. If you do have radar, spotting squalls on radar is a bit counterintuitive. And by that I mean we don't normally keep our radar zoomed out to 25 miles. It's useless, right? You really want to have it in, if I'm 1 to 2 miles offshore, it's a mile. If I'm 2 to 5, it's probably 2 miles, so et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, as you get out. But it's never more than 12. So the thing is, you can get hit with a squall 5 miles offshore when you're zoomed into like 3 miles. And that's, you want to see things at 5 miles. You want to see small boats, rocks, reefs, whatever, on your radar. So what I suggest, and I do this anyway, is like just keep it at 3 miles, and then every 30 minutes zoom out to like 25. Check for tankers, check for squalls. If you catch them 20 miles out, they go like 6 to 10 knots is what they go, probably 8 to 10 knots. You're going to have an hour to prepare. If you're looking at 5 miles and a squall line that's 10 miles comes around, now you have very little time to prepare for what's going to suck for a really long time. Because there's a squall that comes and goes, and there's a squall line you can get stuck in for like a long, very uncomfortable time. The thing with the radar is you can see where they are. You can see how the diameter of them, and you can see what direction they're going. It's really hard to track them. The chart plotter doesn't track them too well. For me, I just lay in waypoints at the edges and then see where they're going with those waypoints. I have a couple of friends that use that same method. Different chart plotters are different radars are different. So whichever system you have, read the manual, call the manufacturer. Don't get advice from a friend in this thing. This is very important. You can kill yourself. I mean, you can get knocked over. So make sure you have the absolute optimal setting to be able to see these things during the day and during the night. So with that, the problem is there's no way to judge power. And I mean that to say I can be like, okay, there's a squall line. It's 5 miles wide. It's moving at 6 knots. They don't follow the prevailing wind. They make their own wind, so you don't really know. Just, again, track them with the waypoints. I can see, once you start tracking, you see where they're going to go. I can see when they're going to hit me. I can see probably how long I'm going to sit in it, because I can see how big it is. Although they do kind of like morph all the time. I just can't check power. There's no way on the chart plotter to understand power. So I've seen 15 going to 35. I've seen 20 going to 22. I've seen 20 going to 50. So when you're going into these things, you really need to be like, okay, who's on my boat? Are they good sailors? Are they newbies? Is it nighttime? There's a bunch of extenuating factors that kind of go into it that are like, okay, for me, I'm single-handed, so I'm like super conservative. Like I know if I go double reef in the main, double reef in the jib, I can do up to 35 apparent. And that's really high. Like rarely do you see over that. So, and then what I'll do is, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but, well, let me just read the list here, and then we'll kind of get back to it. Because I have a list that I wrote that I work pretty good on, and I just want to make sure that these things are covered specifically. Number one, it's important not to panic. When you first start having these things go over you, they're very scary. They're very windy. Your boat starts to make all kinds of sounds in 30 knots and 40 knots. There's vibrations. Things that don't normally move. It's scary. And then the rain is sideways. Absolutely sideways. So the wind, the rain, even if it's to a seasoned sailor, the sea state, the boat, the sailing, the experience, it could be a daunting thing to go into. Violent is a good word, because what happens is it doesn't work onto you. Like if you're in 20, it doesn't just start 21, 22, 23. It's 20 and then it's 50. And it's just this giant wall of wind. It just goes, and then you're in it until it goes away. Reef down early, don't wait. Again, once you get into 30 or 40 knot winds, you're not reefing your boat. Maybe you can try Maybe you're a better sailor than me and you can reef in 30 or 40. Can't see any version of loosening your sails in 30 knot winds, but whatever. To each their own. My advice would be act early, reef down, be prepared. Like I said, on my boat, the double reef, 35 knots. Apparent. If you have new people on the boat, give them a job. If you do give them a job, give them one job. Your job is to pull in the reef line, to tail the main sheet, tail the jib sheet, not steer. Whatever it is, just give them one job. And if they're super new, for me on my boat, I have like these back benches that are very, very closed in that you can't really fall out of. I'll stick them in there and clip them in and just say, look, just stay out of the way. It's easier for me. If your cockpit's small and your main sheet and your travel right here, your jib's right here, you got rolling backstays, and whatever that is, maybe they just need to go downstairs. Maybe that is the answer to the question, is them just not being on the way. And look, it's not a matter of them doing the wrong thing. It's a matter of what if a sheet goes loose? What if a halyard goes loose? What if there's an accidental jibe? They don't know where to be. They don't have situational awareness of what goes on in a boat. So it's very easy for them to hurt themselves. You get a line wrapped, you can lose a hand, or just go overboard, or get killed by a boom. There's a guy got killed, 10 days ago out here. He got whacked in the head with a boom and died instantly. They got to him like that in the water, and he got knocked off the boat, and he was already gone from the jibe. So it is a scary thing with very, very big wind, especially to have newer people on the boat. If someone falls off the boat and it's 40 knot winds, I hope they have a strobe, a radio I don't know. What I tend to do, I'm single-handed. I have an Iridium Go. I have a Garmin InReach. Well, I have them both, but my Garmin InReach has a case that's waterproof. So when I'm up on deck by myself, I'm tied to the boat. I have a PFD. I have a crotch strap. I have a radio, like a handheld radio that's waterproof, that's got a strobe. I have my personal locator, my strobe, and my whistle that's in my life vest already. And I have my Garmin InReach clipped to me with the thing. And the reason is I can text from that Garmin InReach. I mean, they're going to find the thing from this. Hopefully you're still there and didn't get, eaten up by a shark or anything. But lots of different ways. The radio basically is if a tanker comes to find me, if they send a tanker to get me, I'm not in the life raft, and they're like, hey, there's a personal locator went off, they're not going to see you. So now when they get within about 5 miles range, don't have the radio on, turn the radio on then and start, talking to the ship that's coming to find you. So in many ways you can get people to come and get you. Let's see here. Secure everything in the deck that's not already secured. It should already be secured. I will say that higher winds do different things. The only thing on my boat, I have 475 watt, 6 foot by 5 foot panels on my foredeck above the cabin top that hinge out like this so I can get sun. Hinges are rock solid. There's nothing connecting them on this end. So they kind of just sit there. And I've never had them move ever, and I've been in every angle of up to 50 knot winds. But if I do see a squall coming, I'll put a ratchet strap across both from the railing, so they'll definitely won't go anywhere. It's just a safety thing. Make sure you have a PFD on when it comes. Make sure you have a tether. Make sure you have gloves. I never wear gloves on my boat. My hands are rock solid. I'm a sailor for sure, salty as salt can be. That said, 3 wraps on the jib, 40 or 50 knots comes up on you, you can lose a lot of flesh real quick. So just have some gloves available. A pants and jacket, depending on the weather that's out, obviously. I have a scuba mask always on my throttle. I had to use it. I was in Kasserai, and I dropped my anchor. It only went down like 12 feet, and I couldn't get it to go down. Couldn't get it to go up. There was no moorings. And the only dock had a Coast Guard cutter, which is kind of funny, in Micronesia, 3,000 miles from America. More than 5,000 miles from America. And I called the guy, I'm like, pon, vessel hold fast. I can't anchor. Can I please tie to your boat for a couple hours and let me work out what's wrong with my windlass or switches or whatever? And the guy's like, no problem. It was blowing 35 or 30 apparent. I'm backing down onto the cutter right down the guts of the boat. The rain was bullets in my face, and I'm steering like this. I'm holding it this way. I'm using the throttle like this, looking down the back of the boat behind the helm. And I had a pink, the girl that I was with had a pink mask, snorkeling mask, in snorkel. So I put the mask on. So I'm sitting there in my boxers, these plaid boxers. It's a school trip on the cutter because they're doing public relations. That's what the cutters are doing, island in Micronesia. So it's like 50 people on deck, and it's just me with this pink goggles on, trying to like not whack their boat in like 35 knots. Some funny shit. It was just really funny, but it's just good to have. And look, if you foul your prop, if you foul your rudder, something is wrapped around the keel, you have a mask. You can just dive off and at least like get down and look. You know, if you need to get more air, you can pull the hook out or the spare air or whatever. But, you know, just have the mask so you can just jump off real quick and see what the problem is and assess. And then you can figure out, all right, I'm going to be in the boat for an hour. I need to put my scuba stuff on. You'll be hand steering. If it's a squall line, it could be an hour. You know, make sure you have water, maybe a snack, gloves, food, tether, life vest, flashlight for sure. Just be prepared. Do not, this is very obvious, well, two things. One, you should never run your autopilot over 20 knots. Just shouldn't do it. It's not made for that. It's your best friend, especially if you're day tripping off the coast somewhere, it's not such a big deal. But if you're doing like me, if you're doing 3,000 mile passages, you need that autopilot to work. So you really don't want to beat on it for no reason, basically. And then obviously do not let someone new steer in 30 knot winds. We'll get into sailing angle here in a minute. Actually, we're getting into sailing angle right now. So there's two ways to handle the squall twin sitcoms. Just made that word up. I do reef and run. That's what I call it. And basically that is I will reef appropriately way beforehand to where I think it's going to be. And then once I have it coming, I'll come off to like 120. If it's super big, I'll center the main, go dead downwind, and get like, I don't know, maybe 170. So a little side pressure. So moving really slow, not getting knocked over. There's a bunch of ways to do it. Ideally, we want to be behind 140. You want your preventer up for sure, because you're going with it. It knocks down the apparent wind. The swell is going with you. It's just less violent at the end of the day. If it gets too bad, turn the motor on and bury it downwind. Take away a little bit more of the apparent wind. I've never done that. I've been a friend that's done that. I think the prop would probably not grab at some point, but either way, another thing to try. The argument to be made is, and it's a legitimate argument, is with reef and run, the storm's going over me, but with me, right? So it's going to take longer because we're doing this. I'm doing 6 knots. It's doing 10. Eventually, it's going to go away. The other school of thought is to harden up to 45 and eat it, and you'll get right through it in like 5 minutes, which is true, you know, depending on how big the storm is. The thing is, how much do you want to put 40 knot upwind stress on your headstay, on your sail, on your mainsail, on your boom? I mean, on yourself, on your boat, mentally. Now you're like in 50 going 7, it's like 60, like, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. I would rather, I have nowhere to be in no time, and you know, in the world of time to get there. So for me, if it takes an extra hour, but it's less stress on me and less stress on my boat, cool. Maybe even if it's 5 hours, I don't care. I got no place to be. In myself, my crew, and my boat, safety is tantamount, paramount, all the mounts. Super important, right? It's more important than me saving an hour at the end of the day. So, that's what I got on that. Signs that it's coming, the temperature's going to drop, you're going to feel a chill down your back. The prevailing wind's going to slow down because you're about to get smashed. The sea state builds, and you know, whitecaps are generally 12 to 14 knots when you see the wind coming up. Wind direction tends to change with these things. They make their own wind, so don't be surprised if you're going 50, then you're going 130. fix it then, obviously. You should know, once it's coming, you should know what the wind angle is going to be at that point. Well, you will know, obviously. The wind starts howling and the boat just goes. Like I said, it hits you like a sledgehammer. It's not slow, it's violent, it just comes very quickly. They're very, very scary the first few times. They're still concerning for me today. I mean, I've been in hundreds. I mean, I remember there was one night alone that I was going from Kasarai to Ponape, that it was just 7 hours of non-stop squall lines, just non-stop the whole night. I just got beat up. And that kind of brings us to our last point, which is the aftermath. You survived. Woo! Actually, if you... It really is, not a lot of people go out where these things are intentionally. I'm assuming you're going somewhere, not just like, I'm going to go do squalls. So it is the thing. Look, if you made it safely through 40 knots of wind, it's a story to tell. The best stories that we have on our boat are not stories where we intentionally went out and hurt ourselves to do some harrowing thing. This happened. It's the ocean. It's harrowing, all on its own. You don't need to make it any more difficult than just leaving the dock. So the last thing, well, a couple more things, but real quick. For me personally, like I said, I'm single-handed most of the time, okay? So here I am. It's midnight, 1 in the morning, squall just left. I'm double reefed, triple reefed. Now I'm going 2 knots because it was blowing 40. Now it's blowing 10 or 12 or 15. So what do? Do you wait out the night? I have to go forward to drop and add a reef. I have to go forward on deck and do that. So what I tend to do is I'll let the whole reef out of the jib because I can just throw that in and just re-reef the jib at my pleasure. But that night I will not let the main back out because it's just, if it happens again, it's a whole thing. It's not worth the effort for me. If I'm going 4 knots, cool. Maybe I'll throw the motor on at 1800, so I got to like 5. Again, I have nowhere to be at any specific time to where it's going to hurt myself, my crew, or my boat. And it's really, I say it in that order for a reason. If you harm yourself, you're no good to the crew that a lot of the time have no idea what they're doing, and then there's your boat. So it is that order. You need to really take care of yourself first and make sure you're good. Now, how conservative you want to be, it's up to you. Everybody's different. I know 300 people that are sailing, and they range from, I know people that will not leave the dock in anything over 15. To me, that's a bit much. 15 or 20 is not bad. Above 20, we're starting to get annoying, depending on the sailing angle. If it's downwind, 25 is great. If it's upwind, I won't leave past 20 either, because it's just a brutal bash. But, it's all about how you want to do it. Again, at the end of the day, it's just about being prepared. These things they're completely manageable. You can hide downwind. You can just put it into irons if you want. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. Read up on it some more if you'd like. For sure. If you have a way that I'm not mentioning, please tell me. Put in the comments below. I love to learn new stuff. It's my favorite thing. I love boating. I love teaching. I was a college professor forever. This has been an amazing, amazing adventure. Since my first boat, I've always gone far away places and done really cool stuff, and I like to learn new shit. Oops. Guess what the last thing is? Once you're in it, you're in it. So make a wise decision. You're not going to reef the boat in 30 or 40 knot winds. I hope you guys found this helpful. It was super fun to do it. I just like talking boats. So that's all I got. Brian Hathaway here, episode 4-2, Holdcast on Hold Fast. Here in Malaysia, heading towards Phuket. Yeah. Fair ones.